17 after 12. Megan Briede is on the line, Program Director at Save the Children South Africa, to speak to us about the growing concern about legal marriage age and it being moved to above 18. So Parliament continues public hearings on the new marriage bill. They're in the Northern Cape, and there's a growing number of community members, particularly in Kimberley, who are calling for the legal age of marriage to be raised above 18. While 18 is currently the legal threshold, with or without parental consent, many argue that most 18-year-olds are not emotionally, financially, or developmentally ready for the responsibilities of marriage, especially in a province grappling with high dropout rates and limited economic opportunities. Now, in case you're wondering, this marriage bill seeks to unify South Africa's fragmented marriage laws, but voices on the ground are demanding that it also protect vulnerable young people more robustly. And it's also this thing of seeing, children getting married much earlier. Then you're also hearing from parents and they say, well, if the guy is supporting the child, then, what is the big concern? But let's speak to Megan about this very issue. Megan, good afternoon. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for inviting us on your show.
So when we look at this particular marriage bill, what is the stance of Save the Children South Africa when you unpack this particular bill?
So for us, we do support the minimum age of 18. But what's really important is the change away from 18 years without exception. So in the current framework in South Africa, it allows children, especially girls, as young as 15 to marry with their parental or with a ministerial consent. This new bill removes that. So no child can get married if they are under the age of 18. And we believe that that is very, very important in protecting children. We also recognize that a legal age alone is not what will safeguard our children when it comes to early relationships is how we want to look at it. Yeah.
That is very true indeed, because also how then do parents control early relationships, and if children are able to get married by the age of 18, despite what some of the residents are saying, they're not emotionally, financially, or developmentally ready. If they get married at that particular age, Megan, they obviously then are going to have relationships way before that.
Yeah, so definitely. We do know that any early relationship becomes a challenge. Young people, your emotional, your psychological development, it goes all the way through into your mid-20s. So the earlier you're entering into long-term relationships, the greater the risk is. What we are seeing, though, is that young people who marry at 18, it usually coincides with other vulnerabilities rather than their actual readiness. So entering into a relationship for economic purposes, because they're struggling financially, they can't survive. Entering into relationships because they have fallen pregnant and the family see this as the only solution. So those are our greatest risks. But I think what we need to acknowledge in South Africa is actually the majority of people entering into marriage are not young. They're not 18. Our statistics are showing that the majority of civil marriages, your average age for a woman is around 34 years old.
Sure.
So it's actually not the marriage that's the problem. It's girls are in relationships. They are living with older men. They are not formalizing that relationship. And that is where the greater risk comes, with even further dependency and exploitation, domestic violence, because that girl has no rights in that union.
And just to then veer off just a little bit from this marriage bill and, just to touch on what you're saying, where you are seeing these young girls living with the older men, who then, of course, then, give them children, they have children with them, but there's no marriage per se, Megan. Is it possible for them to be protected parliamentarily as well? I mean, if what parliamentarians are trying to do now with this marriage bill, is it possible for them to also protect young children, and have a law that would protect them against such practices?
There is some legislation that does protect you if you're living with somebody for an extended period of time. where you then can have equal rights as you would in a marriage. So that is essential. But the challenge is that very often these girls are not empowered enough to understand that and to know those rights. And that continues the vulnerability.
So, Megan, when we look at things like, the age of 18 and coming back now to the marriage bill, it is, of course, like you said, legally considered for one to be an adult at that particular age. But when we speak honestly from a psychological or developmental perspective, what are the risks, do you think, of allowing marriage at this particular age? I know that you support it, but there may be some risks as well to allow things like this.
Yeah, well, absolutely. There's always risks. And I think, again, it's the maturity level to make decisions. Your biggest risk is the earlier you enter into marriage, the younger you are when you have children. And we do see that girls who enter into early marriage have foster repeat pregnancies. So you then find somebody with 3, 4, 5 children at a very young age. And that then puts them at even more economic risk. How do you actually bring up and care for those children? And like we say, definitely opens you up to domestic violence. These are very often not young people who have the agency or the social skill to be able to be assertive, to say no, to set parameters within their relationship. And those are massive risks for young people.
Where are the parents, I wonder, and what kind of communities do these children actually come from where this is even acceptable, where they are living with these older men?
Well, I think it boils down a lot to issues of economics. So where there is very high levels of poverty, we do see parents putting children at risk by actually encouraging early relationships and marriage, especially with people who are more affluent and have the means to help the family. So it's quite a deep-rooted problem. And then, of course, we do know that very often, in South Africa, we still have a large generation of young adults who were orphaned themselves due to issues such as HIV. And of course, we have ongoing issues in our country of child neglect. And that would then, precipitate this, lead to more cases of early marriage.
Mm-hmm. Megan, in South Africa, and it's a talking point that happens every Christmas, every New Year, where you have early and unwanted pregnancies in the country, and there are thousands of these, that get reported. So how do you think this piece of legislation can help curb this particular problem?
I'm not sure if this legislation will help us with our teenage pregnancy problem. I think it's much deeper, and I think it goes into more of our health services, access to contraception, access to social behavior change programs that help me as a young person to say no, and also, very importantly, is shifting the blame game of pregnancy to girls, because it takes two, and we need to seriously be focusing on the role of young men and men in early pregnancies and what responsibility they take in preventing this.
And when we look at provinces, and I'm speaking about the Northern Cape mainly because that's where Parliament is with these public hearings now on the new marriage bill. When we look at a province such as the Northern Cape, we've also heard that there have been about 4,000 learners who are not part of the schooling system in that province anymore. How then do you think early pregnancies, or early marriages rather, can intersect with these challenges of school dropout and early pregnancies? Is it possible?
I think definitely. I think early marriage is both a cause and a consequence of early pregnancy and school dropout. So it can contribute. But when it comes down, like I say, to the actual legal marriage, I mean, in 2023, only 3% of civil marriages were in the Northern Cape. So these young people are not getting married. They're cohabiting. And that's the problem we've got to address. We've got to address that underlying challenge. And we know in the Northern Cape there's greater problems such as high levels of substance abuse, Now that could be a bigger driver for issues of school dropout, teenage pregnancy, and that's a driver that we need to seriously address, along, of course, with poverty.
And like you say, it is a matter of being dependent then on the man that one is living with at a young age financially, Megan. And like that is what we need to, like you say, address and really get to the heart of. So who do we bring into the room? How do we address this particular concern?
I think firstly is definitely our Department of Social Development and Education as we look towards social behavior change programs. So programs that address positive decision making, for example, that address sexual reproductive health issues, substance abuse. There's some really good examples of programs that change behavior, but we don't put enough backing and finances behind them. And then, of course, very importantly, we have to deal with the issues of unemployment and how we're capacitating young people to access an income. Because that will immediately start empowering you and stopping this dependency and this need to enter into these relationships of care, or I'm not necessarily care is the right word, but these contractual relationships to help you meet your basic needs. That's the shift that we need.
On X, Tapelo says some of these laws don't work. It's just like saying you're not allowed to drink or smoke before 18 years old, while 12-year-olds are smoking in front of their parents now. Where is the government? The government is us, the citizens, not these people wearing suits in the offices. And it makes a valid point, right, Megan?
Very valid point. We can have the best legislation in the world. If it's not implemented, it doesn't matter. But likewise, if there's problems at community level, I think there's more young people in relationships where they're not married, where they shouldn't be. And we need as a community, and not just government, as a collective community to be questioning the norms we now have, our behaviors as parents, and how we support each other within a community to start shifting the picture that we presently have.
Mm-hmm. And so if the age is raised to 21, would it make much of a difference, do you think?
Personally, I don't think that moving the age to 21 will make that much of a difference. Especially, like I say, when we look at the marriage stats, it's not showing us a picture of 18-year-olds in marriage. What we did see was roughly 4% of the marriages in our country are for children under the age of 18. The majority of legal marriages and customary marriages are higher. They're into your mid-20s and up to your 30s. Mm-hmm. So the law, that's not what's causing our challenge. The law allowing children under 18 to get married with parental consent, that's the problem. And that we're very happy will not be in this new law. But I don't think the 18-21 is going to actually change. Does it make a major difference? Yeah.
Megan, let me thank you for your time. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
for inviting us.
Thank you, Megan.
Thanks.
Megan
Bye-bye.
Briede, the Program Director at Save the Children South Africa, speaking to us about this marriage bill.